Recall that there are two types of cellular transport, passive and active. Passive requires no added energy, but active does require added energy. Active transport also moves from an area of low concentration to an area of high concentration or up the concentration gradient. This is the opposite of passive transport, and because it's more difficult, it needs the energy molecule called ATP, which stands for adenosine triphosphate, because there's an adenosine molecule and 3 phosphate molecules. There are 3 types of active transport: membrane pumps, endocytosis, and exocytosis. Let's look at membrane pumps first. Membrane pumps are just carrier proteins that move substances from areas of low concentration to areas of high concentration. Let's look at the sodium-potassium pump to see how it works. Outside the cell, there's a high concentration of sodium ion, or Na+. The brackets represent the word concentration. Inside the cell, there's a high concentration of potassium ion, or K+. The cell has ion channels that will allow these ions to diffuse and reach equilibrium, but the cell doesn't actually want that. It wants to keep a difference in concentration. So the sodium-potassium pump will force more sodium out and more potassium in all the time. All cells need a way to get materials in and out. The barrier that controls the passage of materials is the cell membrane. Some materials can pass through the cell membrane on their own, but others cannot. To describe this, scientists say the membrane is semi-permeable, which means that only some particles can pass through. There are 2 main ways that particles can get through the cell: passive transport or active transport. Passive transport requires no added energy, but active transport does require added energy. In passive transport, there are 2 basic ways that a material can move across the membrane. Nonpolar molecules like carbon dioxide and oxygen are soluble in lipids, so they can pass right through the phospholipid bilayer. Other molecules that are polar, like water, need to pass through a pore made by a transport protein to move in and out of the cell. So let's see why this movement even happens. The movement of molecules from an area of high concentration to an area of low concentration is called diffusion. A concentration gradient is a difference in the concentration of molecules across a distance. Diffusion goes from high to low areas of concentration. Now, molecules behave just like you do when you're stuck in a crowded elevator. They want to get out to an area where there's more room. They have energy and they bounce around, and as soon as they can move from an area of high concentration to an area of low concentration, they move. Now, there are 3 factors that affect the rate at which they move, and those are temperature, the starting concentration, and the size of the particles. Particles at a higher temperature, more extreme differences in starting concentration, and smaller sizes all tend to diffuse at a faster rate.